Greetings, everyone. I get ready to do another drawing as soon as I eat this chocolate out of here. All right. So, the last couple of doodles have been, well, basically turning the last few pages of this particular sketchbook into greeting cards. Well, I'm going to do the final one here now, and then the last page is just going to be well, it could be over a few days, but basically to fill the page with doodles. Now this one is going to be a little bit darker than the last one, which was a greyhound. From what you may remember moments ago, a greyhound with a little turkey for dinner. This one is going to be one of my favorite comic book characters. I'm sure there are versions of this out there somewhere, and that's fine. You may even find versions of this out there by me, but anyway, regardless. So, I'm starting off with the eyes again. As I do. And this isn't going to stay like this. So, at the end of this video, you'll see something that I will do with my drawings every so often in the finished works that I would produce. Now let's do a little zoom in here so you can see where I'm going with something. It's going to be messy. It's going to be imperfect. And that is the way we like it. And if we make any really fun mistakes, we don't mind. And why? Because we will live with it, or we will trash it. I'm just kidding. We're going to keep this, regardless of how it turns out. So this is going to be another holiday card. As I said, featuring one of my favorite characters, done in my style, for whatever that's worth. Some of you might say, I wonder what is going on here. Why will it be done in this person's style? Well, different people can influence you to do things. But I'm doing this just because it's fun. Don't always like to do an open mouth, because then you are like, well, do I have to put in like that hangy ball thing at the back of the throat, the uvula? Do I have to worry about how many of the teeth can be seen, the position of the tongue, if it's necessary to put that in? Some people like to count, the teeth. Make sure that, the artist is versed in some sort of anatomical correct something or other. Well, speaking as someone who still has all of their wisdom teeth, I don't know if it's necessary to really complain about how many teeth someone has in their mouth. So if you're one of those people and you want it to be exact based on what you have, then that's fine. Draw the character as you see fit. If you have only 5 teeth in your mouth, cool beans, I guess. I don't know if any of you have any guesses as to where I am yet with who this character might be, mainly because you may not see where I'm going yet. But so far we're giving this face a good deal of symmetry. We'll even give them a bit of a chin. Remember, this is supposed to be a Christmas card as well. So we're going to give them a bit of a jaw here. And remember, they are screaming or wishing well or something like that. And just fair warning, I'm probably going to put a Santa styled hat, a red toque, because that to me is funny. The jaw might be a little bit much right now, but that's okay. Again, I can say what I will say with most of these things for so long as I'm holding the pen. And I'm doing this for me. It is okay. I'm going to leave that part alone for a moment. Make my way down here. And we are going to add some uncanny facial hair. Oops, did I just give away anything? Oh, weird. I once had a beard. That sounds like a beginning of a limerick anyway. So I actually grew a fairly large bit of facial hair at one point in my life. And for some reason, I didn't bother to get rid of it before getting a passport photo done. And so I had to live with that photo for a while. That was funny, because I ended up shaving at some point, and you know, when you end up at the border, or you're flying somewhere to another country, and they look at you and they're like, huh, I mean, I know that's you, but okay. So depending on how much it sort of changes you, hard to say if you should recommend. Oh, let's get some little tiny nose hairs here, sure. Some speckles of a mustachio. A little bit down here too, why not? So I'm sure you can see, although it's an elongated face, where I might be going with this. But as I said, we're going to put in a fuzzy hat. And some wild hair, and a couple of straggler hairs there, why not? Now, do I want that pom-pom thing to be on this side or on this side over here? Well, let's have it kind of in the air, just a little bit. And we'll put more of that wild hair out here. So, I'm sure you've guessed what I've drawn based on this hairstyle even, and what's going on with this jowl. Okay. Now, as I said, this is always kind of the fun part to think, well, where do you want to place things in the mouth if you leave it open? I admit, when I first had the mouth open, I was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny, instead of like a cigar, to have a candy cane sticking out of it, but I decided not to when I started working on the bottom row of teeth. Am I regretting that now? Not really. put little dots just to center the eye just a little bit. Then we'll fill in the eye just a little bit too on the edges. Okay. Now, much like the last video when we had the greyhound, we're going to have this character, which now I think I can just say out loud because you're probably already there. This character, for the longest time, we would have known by the name Weapon X. We would have known this character by the name Wolverine. We would even know this character by the name Logan. I like to think of this character having a different name. And that would be, well, actually two different names. Two names sort of stick out for me. One would be the Old Man, which I think is kind of a fun name. And the other is James Howlett. Now that to me is a way cooler name to know this character by. Okay. Now you can't have the Wolverine without something else very specifically attributed to this character. And that would be now let's see. Just trying to think of how I want it to be. Hand position's always fun with these things. So we're going to start off like this. And it is here where I will probably insert something kind of funny. Or not, I don't know, we'll see. I do wonder about there being a new movie version of the Wolverine, because Hugh Jackman has played this character for such a long time. Yeah, it's just interesting. I'm still not perfectly decided if I want these to be bone or adamantium infused. I don't know that yet. And because we already see the Adam's apple here, we may not be as concerned with whether or not, I'm just sort of talking out loud at the moment, where certain bits of clothing could be give him a little bit of hair on the back of his hand, some off the thumb a little bit, although that might have went a little funny. Okay. I'll be honest with you, I've only really run into a handful of people that were this kind of hairy. And I know that one of them actually would shave their hands. No joke. Then, you know, eventually you get into waxing it in hopes that it not come back as often, I suppose. So there's that. Okay. We're already at 22 minutes by this time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to call, and I know you know where this is going, but we're going to not take too much time with this. So I'm just trying to think of how I want the lettering to look. Make it a little kind of shaky looking. And over here, we will have a little bit more to say. Okay. Dip this again here. I do believe the name that I mentioned, the James Howlett thing, and the whole other part of why so many people would call him Logan is because he wore a set of dog tags. And one version would have had, of the story I should say, would have had that he did not remember anything about who he was, only that he was wearing the dog tags. And then one of the dog tags said Logan. That he may or may not have been wearing this to, I don't know, that they weren't his, but, well, it's hard to say. I don't really know. Different storylines. Hard to say what actually belongs to what. Okay. So down below, I just kind of drew in a quick little bit of dog tags. And so we're about to start the final bit of processing. So right now I'm just putting a little extra ink inside these letters. You'll see why in a moment. And it is at this point when you might think, oh no, I'm about to wreck this again. And that is fine, because that is fun. Okay, here we go. I'm going to bring out a brush, a little bit of water, and we are going to drag some ink around. And this is something that I sometimes do because it's fun. And it's a great way to get shadow in as well. Fill in some gaps in an interesting way. That's why I added a little extra ink throughout the center of the letters. And this is why I use the ink that I do, because you can do this kind of stuff with it. It doesn't set in the page permanently and fast. Well, I do have permanent ink. This to me is just a fun thing to be able to do after the fact with this type of ink. Sorry about that getting out of focus. Just moving the paintbrush underneath the camera will take some of the focus away from the camera, and I don't really pay attention to cameras, so I'll try to keep a better eye on that. We'll scoot in this and this just a little bit. We may do the bub differently. Different color anyway. Okay, now we're going to do something fun. I'm going to rinse out this brush very quickly. And I'm going to get some red ink. So we're going to bring this stuff back out again. The Ferris wheel press ink. Sharpen up that image just a little bit while I'm there. We're going to see what this ink will look like for the hat. It fills in quite nicely. Trying to be a little bit more careful with this. And this one I will be sending to another friend of mine. I'll drop it off in person. Just in time for the holiday season. A little bit more on the edge here. Okay. A little bit on the tongue, just a couple little dots, because I'll be back to drop some more ink. Oh, you know what? I might as well just put a little bit more than just dots. Okay. Run a couple of lines through the bub. Then we'll do some more with the ink and water, and with just the what would now be dry or sort of dry black ink in the rest of the drawing. So just little traces in there. All right, that's it for the red for now. And now we're really going to try to ruin it. Okay. We're going to get in here with a little bit more water. And we're going to really splash it in here. So it does have like this really strange effect. can get a little heavy in there too, and it might run a little bit. But doing this is a reminder that it is done by a human being. You get little driplets that'll sort of form out of some of the spots. Then they'll kind of expand and smear and blur. And it takes a little bit of the process away from me. And water just does its own thing. It sort of adds to what I'm doing. It might take away some of the detail, but I mean, I'm being semi-strategic with where I'm putting the water. And as I said, I like to do this with some of my more finished things, rather than start off with just ink and brush. This way you can kind of decide where you want that effect to be. And where you want the image to remain sharp. Now for the fun part. We're going to work around the eyes and the cheeks and the nose. So let's start with the nose. We're going to kind of pick the nose a little bit. So you may remember that I put in a little bit of ink there. So I could go back and mine that out. We'll close in a little bit more of the face. Next, we'll go to the eyes. We'll let them set in just a little bit. But you see what I mean about it creates sort of like a natural shadow. You can move in tones. It really allows the water to be the extra illustrator of sorts. Now, we're going to take care of some of these little spots on the lip. Add a couple little here. It adds a little bit of life, I think, doing it this way. Now, we're going to do some on the hand here. Not to all of it, though. and a little bit on the claws, which we can assume are adamantium. So that's kind of neat, detail-wise. Now we're going to go back up here, because I'm mostly done with what I've done with the black ink. We're going to go back up to the bub, and we're going to let those two inks kind of melt together a little bit. And if this was dry enough, you can go back and you can add extra fine details to the parts that have kind of blurred out a little bit. I think just because I might have a little bit of red in here, let's put a little bit of red in the corners of his eyes. Which no one but you and I will know about. And because I kind of forgot, I'm going to take care of this tongue now. There you go. Well, folks, I do believe that is going to be it for this drawing for now. And we'll close up this ink. So in just under 45 minutes, finished up another card. This one is of James Howlett, also known as Logan, also known as Wolverine, also known as Weapon X, and now also known as Mr. Claus. Let's see if I can... There you are. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful evening, or morning, or whatever time of day it is for you, and thank you very much for joining me. We'll see you sometime in the future.